Hey there, this is Ashley Avis. I am here on the ground in Australia, and I wanted to put out a message to anyone who's watching this. For anyone that has information surrounding the Brumby cull, anyone who has information about the shooting of the Palomino stallion and his family, and for anyone who is bold enough to speak, any of the shooters, anybody who has been a shooter, anyone in the parks that knows what is going on with the Brumbies is egregious and knows that this is wrong, I'd really like to talk to you. As a journalist, I can maintain confidentiality. We can distort your voice. We need people to stand up. And I also have a message for the individual who approached me a few days ago in Jindabyne at 6 a.m. within the BP station. The person who asked me if I was the girl on Facebook going on about the bloody Brumbies. It was very aggressive. And I think that somebody like you, if you are willing to talk to me about what your stance is on the Brumbies, we would like to hear from anyone who has information about what is going on in the park and anyone who is bold enough to speak, even if you don't agree with the compassionate solutions that we're putting forth. Contact at wildbeautyfoundation.org.
The snowy mountains, a vast, untamed wilderness where, for over 2 centuries, a remarkable creature has carved out a life against the harsh realities of nature. The wild Brumby. These majestic herds, bonded by blood and fierce loyalty, are a living piece of our heritage. They wake with the sun, navigating the rugged terrain with a grace that has come to define the very spirit of the high country. But today, the silence of this sanctuary is broken, not by the forces of nature, but by the hand of man. A shadow has fallen over Kosciuszko. A 3-month aerial shooting campaign has begun. Imagine the terror, driven from the shelter of the bush by quad bikes, forced directly into the open and into the firing line of helicopters. These family units running to the point of utter exhaustion, desperate to protect their young, only to face an agonizing end. Trapping operations have been halted, humane rehoming efforts silenced. This is no longer management. It is a tragedy unfolding in the heart of our wilderness. Around the world, other nations have found another way. Humane alternatives exist, paths of compassion that respect both the land and the lives within it. Millions of dollars, now spent on eradication, could instead fund a gentler, more civilized future. The heritage of these wild horses cannot be reduced to a line item in a budget. The world is watching. We cannot let silence stand for cruelty. The Australian Labor government must hear our collective voice before the high country falls permanently silent. Stand for those who cannot speak for themselves.
And welcome to the Country Telegraph. I've been sitting here waiting because we've had some issues with one of our guests, so we're not going to be able to put the 3 up. We're going to do two very good guests too, by the way. Before we get into the panel, a reduced panel at this stage, although we are looking for the third person at the moment. Before we get into that, I've noticed a few things. First of all, to the entire population of those that love Brumbies and want to do what they can to help, thank you. That's all we can say. We're just like you, sort of not floundering, but working our way through, trying to work out how we can get our message over. How do we get the message over to the greater population? Well, part of our history is that we were a TV network, and hopefully we'll one day be at that TV network again. So we have some facilities, and so what we're going to do is start to produce community service announcements. So those community service announcements are targeted not at you, they're targeted at those that don't know enough about what's happening to the Brumbies, because we believe that we need probably the entire population of Australia, or a great chunk of it, to scream about what's happening, because in November is part 2, un deux, of the, bit of French there, of the cull. We must not get there. We cannot get there. It is just beyond belief. In fact, right throughout Australia, the bureaucrats who control the government are doing all they can to kill, just kill. And it's terrible because this must not happen. This is not how I was brought up to be an Australian or how you were brought up to be an Australian. This is just barbaric, and we're not barbaric, or are we? So what we're going to do is remind people that we have to look after our mates. We need to look after their backs. Not just say, oh, I've got your back and then turn away from it. If it is confronting, you need to confront it, not turn away. So our first, which is on Facebook now, our first community service announcement, which we just go to Facebook and send it to everybody. Send it, make it viral, because we need to get our message over. So this is our first one. That's our first 30-second community service announcement. And hopefully it will make people think about what's happening. It's brutal. There are no images of a deceased horse. None of that. I won't do that. But we can create the message through, I think, some clever work, and that's what we have to do. We have to get our message over. Otherwise, if we don't, I can tell you, government will do what government does and roll over everybody. And that's what they do. We need the sway of the Australian population. We need people to be shocked and disgusted at what's happening. Then we'll go after the ISC and other government ministers, because this is not, truly in my own opinion, for us here at the Country Telegraph, it is not how Australians should act. It's as simple as that. You do not shoot any more horses. Simple as that. Now, Instant Polls is our official sponsor. If you want to increase your bottom line, boost your communication with your frontline staff, and gather valuable data from your most important resource, your employees, then visit instantpolls.online today to learn more. Today's poll on the Country Telegraph is: do you support Kosciuszko Station's approach to land management that utilises wild animals rather than government-imposed culling? In WA, they want to kill 70 or 80 donkeys that have been looking after the land, and he's turned the whole thing around. I think it's called regen farming. So just use the QR code on our screen to vote. Each vote is secure and anonymous and verified by 2FA. The result will be broadcast on the Country Telegraph after 8 a.m. on Tuesday, the 21st of July. Now, the link will also be published on Facebook. Now, to share the link and ask your family and friends to participate. We did a poll yesterday: how has the culling of brumbies at the Kosciuszko National Park impacted your mental health? The poll had a high engagement rate and diverse responses across age groups and states, with the majority feeling a great impact from the topic. The insights suggest that the topic resonated more with older age groups and certain states, and varying levels of impact across demographics. The majority of respondents yesterday, 68.42%, indicated that the topic had a great impact on them. A smaller percentage felt it had a little impact at 15.79%, with some reported a moderate impact of 10.53%, and a few said there was no impact. The age group of 60 to 69 had the highest participation, with most of them reporting a great impact. So, analysing state by state, New South Wales had the highest number of respondents reporting a great impact, followed by Queensland and Victoria. So we're going to bring in our guests. We have Andrew Wilesmith, who'll be there. So Cam's just going to fix Andrew up. It's all happening, as they say. It's one of those days. But every day is one of those days. My dad always said it's nice to wake up, until he didn't. Now, this is a panel that we've put together. We want to discuss some issues. We're going to keep doing this, by the way. And hopefully we can have a discussion and share information and come up with alternatives and solutions that we can then present to government and other people who are in charge of massacring beautiful animals at this stage. The New South Wales Government has created a hell of a problem for itself, exceedingly cruel and unethical methods for culling brumbies in the Kosciuszko National Park are creating growing community backlash and irreparable damage to their reputation, alongside serious questions about transparency and lack of evidence-based decision-making. We urge the government before it's too late to stop the culls and discard the ideologues and the propaganda war, the information war, and listen to the locals who are willing to share their considerable time and expertise. Angus Taylor, leader of the LNP, said himself that the locals must manage the park. And it's as simple as that. No more bureaucrats. As we would say, bugger off, get out of our space. Let the locals do what they did and do best. And they'll do a magnificent job. And then we'll bring back the harmony that we need. All admit the issues, though, are complex, and there will be cost. And yet, if they spent 8 million already, more than 8 million, 9 or 10 million on killing these poor animals, if you spent half that, you would achieve a lot more. You would have just a better park. And I also see they're going to put in new tracks, walking tracks all over the park. Think about it, all these walking tracks. Wasn't that what they were complaining about that the horses were doing? But we're going to spend millions and millions and millions to put in new tracks, which will destroy the environment. The horses have been doing their minimal tracking, not destroying the environment, and we're going to kill them. So there has to be other things at play. But to stop that, we need the entirety of Australia to get behind and say to the politicians, say to the ISC, bugger off, get out of our space, stop killing our animals, stop just wanting to kill. We have to stop that. We have to stop the culling. If we have that, truly, I can tell you, this country its reputation, it's finished. So we have to stand up for Australia. Our panel, the first of many, will bring together knowledgeable people who can offer practical solutions for managing our brumbies to achieve the outcomes desired by all decent Australians. The government just needs to start listening. Cam, you're driving this ship, so I presume let me have a look where we're at, because I don't know what we're doing at the moment. Cam, if you could just bring in the big 4-up, because we have Andrew here. That's just good. No, that's the wrong 4-up. We got the other one with the picture of the horse. That one, which I spent all morning making. Anyway, yeah. And Cam is now about to put that in, I would imagine. Thank you, Cam. You'll go to heaven. No, you won't. Okay. Looking at our panel, we have Dunbar Wilkinson, who's a 5th-generation Snowy Mountains grazier and cattle breeder. He has a strong interest and expertise in agricultural management and enhancing natural biodiversity in the Australian high country. Dunbar is a former horsebreaker, stockman, drover, bull catcher and for 20 years was captain and senior deputy for his local bushfire brigade. Dunbar, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Mike.
Then our next guest, which is, thank goodness it worked, Andrew Wilesmith. He's from Ngarigo. He's a Ngarigo Nation leader, horseman, trainer and volunteer firefighter. The Ngarigo Nation traditional custodians of the Australian Alpine and Kosciuszko Park region. He's an advocate for humane management and Ngarigo-led solutions for wild horses or brumbies. The Ngarigo Nation Indigenous Corporation emphasises their responsibility to manage country. Give it back to the people that know what they're doing. That's all you have to do. No more shooting. Stop it. They have conducted community research and advocated for humane stewardship that honours the Brumbies' heritage value while protecting the alpine ecosystem. Andrew, thank you for joining us. We have no sound. It's going. We're going well. Andrew, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mike.
We can hear you too. You're looking beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Didn't take long. And our final guest is Belinda Williams. Belinda Williams is an advocate for the protection of horses. Belinda grew up in on the rural outskirts of Sydney. Hello. The properties she grew up on had been previously degraded by topsoil extraction for housing developments and clear felling. Over the last 5 decades, this has changed into a wonderland of ecological restoration with abundant native wildlife living alongside the same hard-hoofed introduced species. Now, Belinda has adopted brumbies and given them sanctuary while advocating for non-lethal management. Belinda, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me today.
And we actually got here, which I'm very, very happy, a bit later, but you know, we're doing this on the fly today, and it is important what we're doing. First of all, I'll put to you, Dunbar, and I just want to get your reaction, because we've been here for a week now, but I want to get your reaction on your thoughts on what is happening, and or just basically your thoughts on what's happening, and we'll go right around the panel. So Dunbar, just succinctly tell us your thoughts on the cull, how atrocious it is, and how we can stop this in your mind.
Look, I think a bit of a natural yardstick to use is to apply. If my neighbour saw me chasing a horse around, pumping bullets into it, and saw me put 15 bullets in a horse before it died, and they went and contacted the authorities, I reckon it wouldn't take long for RSPCA to be knocking on my door, and it wouldn't take long for the police to be knocking on my door, and I'd be dragged through the muck pile, and my name would be mud in my local community. I'm sure I'd feature on the local rag and probably a couple of bigger newspapers, and so I think why is there one rule for taxpayers and another rule for government? What's going on up here with these choppers, with this aerial cull? It's sort of been under the guise of conservation. It's just greenwashing. We've got the Snowy 2.0 disaster happening in the very country they're accusing of brumbies destroying it, and there's been spill after spill in the creeks. There's talk that it may not even ever get finished. It's just the black hole. I think to have these sort of animal welfare disasters going on in the name of conservation, while we've got all these other ski resorts being pushed, there's just constant growth happening, development plans for higher dollar tourist venues. I just think to have all that going on and then be singling out, like, how did we come to a point as a country where we've dammed the rivers on the Monero. We've dammed 2 of the major rivers and turned them back on themselves. We've dammed towns, farmland on the Monero. We've got wind farms now on the Monero. We've got Snowy 2.0 going on. We've got the ski industry going on. How do we get to a point where out of all that, we decide we've got a zero tolerance for brumbies to live where they've lived for 200 years without a single animal species extinction being attributed to them?
Yeah, I just was yesterday. We filmed from Moomba Huts again in Jindabyne, and Brett's property, magnificent, enormously cold. I mean, I was shaking so much I thought I'd be arrested for being obscene at one stage, and it was very cold. But it backs onto the national park, and it isn't it funny because you could pop across the stream and just walk around. And a couple of people said it didn't feel right. Something was not feeling right at the moment. And if you believe in spirits and karma and that sort of stuff, the reason why I would think it wasn't feeling right, because it's not. It's not right. This is not how we treat living things, animals. Andrew, 2 things here. Would you back me up on that the evil that is being perpetrated at the moment on these horses is creating bad spirits? And secondly, your thoughts on the culling or the absolute massacre of these magnificent animals?
Yeah, I do support you, Mike. The culling of the horses has to stop, and it's got to cease now. You can't go managing numbers and everything by shooting the horse inhumanely. Furthermore to that, the RSPCA needs to be held accountable and responsible for their actions as well, because they're there to protect all animals. It doesn't matter whether they're on country or whatever they are. I agree with Dunbar saying that if we went and done it on our farms or to any animal or shot anything like that, we'd definitely be behind bars by now. I don't think you'd even get the 15th bullet into you before they're tapping you on the shoulder. They are a spiritual animal to me and the Narragain mob, and they do roam across our song lines and everything like that. I also believe that the horses should be used as a fire preventative tool. By the way they graze and everything, I went up to the parks after the 2020 bushfires, or wildfires I might say, because there's no such thing as bushfire anymore. And the areas that weren't severely impacted by fire were the areas where the horses actually grazed. And by the horses grazing that and keeping the fuel loads down, well, wouldn't you think, or anyone that's got common sense, wouldn't you think that those horses actually protected the habitats for the native species? The horses are not doing the damage they are, and let's face it, all we're hearing from the government, Penny Sharp, Jack Goff, Chris Minns, the whole lot, all we're hearing is hearsay. They got no actual or factual information that supports their propaganda and their false and misleading information, and it's just lies, and that's got to stop. It's not a way forward, and they got to start getting back to the basics of it. They don't understand animals, they don't understand the environment, and they definitely don't understand the heritage, culture and value of the Narragain people or that of the people of the mountains. So they have to stop disrespecting everyone as a whole.
And they do. Belinda, what's your thoughts?
Well, I come from a different place than the 2 lovely gentlemen who spoke before me. I come from the city. I'm a city girl. Even though I grew up on a farm, I learned to shoot when I was a young child. I have done all the things that country kids did. I also saw the city side. And having spent a lot of time going to Parliament House and sitting outside and talking to people, I'm really confused by the disconnect that you see in today's society. I have texts that go back 200 years about horse care, and there is not one text that says you can destroy a horse by shooting it through the back or through the thorax. Every single text will draw a line from one side to the other, and they'll make an X, and that is where you shoot a horse, straight through the head. There is nothing that says anything they are doing there is humane. And yet when you talk to people about this, their general response is, we have to keep the horses off Kosciuszko. We have to keep them off the mountain. I've been up there, I've seen the horses. But that's not true. You know that's not true. The horses are not found in those areas. They're found in montane and subalpine areas of the park. They're found in areas that have been subject to previous development by people in terms of a civil, a whole settlement in Kyandra, goldfields, grazing leases. They're not in the sensitive areas. But then they say, no, they have to go. And however the government says to do it is fine. And I can't understand that disconnect when we're living in a society that is meant to be so compassionate towards so many needs of other people, why we can't extend that to a group of animals that are not proven to be doing anything wrong.
Yeah, I have to say, Dunbar, that the ignorance, and it's not, I'm not you're saying that they're dumb or stupid, but the ignorance, and that's what it is, on what really is happening. And that's because the ISC, for example, they're very clever in what they do. They use the same methods basically as they used in the days of COVID. And whether you agree with what went down or not, you will have to agree that the methods they use are very effective. They're called an information operation, and they present particular pieces of information that will sort of support each other, and therefore you have this narrative that the vein just runs through all correspondence, video, and so forth. And that's what's happened right now, isn't it, Dunbar? The people think that the horses are doing this terrible damage, and they're not. When you deal with the public quite often, tell me when you deal with the public.
I'm pretty lucky like that. I deal with livestock, so I find people with very different cattle to work to actual cattle. I get to work with livestock. What you see is what you get with animals. With people, it can be, it can be a bit trickier than that.
But we do need to, because the information, and that's why we saw that that community service announcement before. We have to do what they're doing, but the difference is we're telling the truth. There is no information operation in what we're doing. We're just going to tell people that this is what Jack Goff or the ISC, and you are right, we were talking before off camera how we should not focus so much on Jack Goff, because we lose fact, we lose our impact on trying to save the horses, and that's what we're trying to do. And it's not just because we want to save an animal, which we should. It's because these animals are so important to our history of Australia. And if you want to move forward, in my humble opinion, move forward to a better place, you have to acknowledge your history. Bad history and good history. But you have to acknowledge that and not try and rewrite it. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think, I agree with you. I think if you don't learn and acknowledge from history, you've got a very good chance of repeating the mistakes of the past, and I think this is a pretty good example of that, in that I think most people in Australia had started to think we were becoming a fairly civilised country, and there's things that happened in our past that no one's too proud of. There's things that's happened in our past that we can be proud of, but this, to be going down this track, I think in this so-called age of being civilised, I mean, it's just crazy, like you say, the disconnect. But I think aside from these animals being really important to us, to Australia, well, to some Australians culturally, I'd feel really strongly that they're very important to have in that environment up there for, as Andrew said, for fire mitigation, which I feel they can be potentially saving a lot of these species that they're spinning all this propaganda on, that the horses are killing them. I mean, the horses don't even live in the country where the pygmy possums are. They don't even live in most of the country inhabited by the southern corroboree frog. There's a tiny bit of an overlap there. They overlap, I believe, a little. They did, but I think they've shot all those horses out now. They're up on the Fiery Range. I believe horses overlapped with the northern corroboree frog there. So, I mean, it's it just doesn't add up. But for your average person they just believe what they hear and see, and they're so convinced. I've given up on it now, but I used to try and sort of talk it through with people on Facebook. And they're telling you what's going on in country. They've never set foot in it. They've never hung onto a fire hose. They've never shot a horse. They've never worked with wild horses. They've never regenerated an area, a landscape. Most of these people making these decisions, I think, the bulk of these big decisions, I think you could probably apply all of that to. Like, how many of them have actually done any of those things that are involved with what's going on to sort of give them some, real life experience to base their decision making on. I can't remember actually now what the question was, so I don't know if I answered any of it.
You did actually, Andrew. The misconceptions that the public have at the moment of these of the horses, it's done very, and it sort of ties in with Dunbar. It's done very well, isn't it? The misinformation, which first of all they go on about, that we're spreading misinformation. First of all, has the ISC or have the government had any interaction with you?
No, they haven't, Mike. They choose to engage with people who sit their agenda, and if people don't suit their agenda or sit with their agenda, they won't engage with you. So, and they won't even reply to emails. And I've sent emails to Minister Sharp's office, and she's just fobbed it off back to national parks. And national parks have been pretty, with that response, it was a couple of years ago, they were pretty forthcoming with why I went to the minister and stuff. They sent me an email along the lines of, if you have a problem with the management of the national park, you're to come directly to us, you're not to go to the minister. And my response is, well, you didn't engage when I asked to engage, so the minister needs to know this, and I'll engage with whoever I want. So I don't know their permission to do what's right.
Yeah, Belinda, massive failure of government here, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I started writing letters 3 years ago, and I've written, I wouldn't even know how many letters, but I've sent out hundreds of letters to politicians, and most of them do not receive a response. So the ones that do send a response are a pro forma type of letter. Now, I expect that Penny Sharp's office will send out a pro forma letter. I'll expect that Chris Minns will be similar and adjusted to his own rhetoric. However, I was very shocked to see that the letters I received back from the Liberal National Party were often almost a carbon copy of the letters that I was receiving from the Labor government. And to me, that means that those letters have been formulated by the same person. And my suspicion is that ISC has actually given them a template to send out letters in response to objections for the culling of the horses. It's very, very distressing. That doesn't matter what you write. I can spend 2 or 3 hours formulating a letter. I can check my facts. I can put in information that they may not have previously had. I can quote from the inquiry, such as that 94% of submissions to the inquiry on the proposed shooting of horses from a helicopter, 94% were against it, you know. But what I get back is a pro forma letter that says almost exactly the same thing as the person who has sent it to me from the Labor government, and I find that extremely distressing. You made reference to COVID, and I think it is very much the same formula. Anyone who objects to what the government is proposing is discredited. So I've heard Brumby advocates called many things. They've used the word crazies, they've used all sorts of words to describe us, but they have never actually addressed what we've been saying in our correspondence to them, or they simply ignore it.
But that's part of the, and I mentioned go back 5 years to COVID, and that's what they used. They could never answer or couldn't rebuff something, so what they did is they discredited that particular person making that.
They'll call you a conspiracy theorist, they'll call you a loony, they'll call you, you know, any number of different things, but they will not address the point that you're making.
They won't. It's just absolutely terrible. But they do win, because if you go back to COVID, it's the information campaign they had was magnificent, propaganda. Who in their right mind would take a shot in the arm to and not knowing what's in it? But it was, what do they say, safe and effective, which has been looked at as more sudden.
Yeah, and there were plenty of doctors that were saying that this is not the way forward, given you've got the entire population potentially infected. You don't do a mass vaccination when you have a population that has a heavy infection rate, because it actually gives more opportunity for the virus to mutate, and those people were silenced.
And that's what they're doing now, though. Instead of being the vaccine, we have the horse, we have the environment. They're going to destroy the environment, but at the same time,
it's a perfect setup, because once you've said that all of these horses are here and they're doing this damage, and then when all the horses are gone, you can still fabricate horses. You can still say there's horses there. Or if the horses aren't there, you can simply say, well, it was too late. You held all these loonies that wouldn't let us shoot them. They've made it too late now, nothing can recover, and the whole park is ruined, all because of these lunatics. You know, it's a win-win. As soon as you've created that rhetoric around us being the ones that are crazy, then you can say whatever you like and people are going to believe it.
I think at the moment, if Cam could bring us all up, there we are. All those who are lunatics, please raise their hand. Okay. So amongst us, there are no. Actually, I saw some hands go up. Stop that, Andrew. But I don't think we're lunatics. We're just very concerned people. And I think once the population knows the full story and the truthful story, we tell it as it is. Don't make it up. I think if we can enunciate what we're doing, I think we have a good shot. Dunbar, what about sanctuaries? Do they play an important role? We probably need to support more of those. What's your thoughts?
I've got a feeling Belinda might be better one on this. Like I haven't really followed that stuff up that closely, Mike. So I just don't know if I'm probably the right fella to.
Belinda, jump in.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think there's a number of sanctuaries out there that are doing great work. So of course you've got Mountain Brumby Sanctuary, which has the Cooma site and the one in Broadford in Victoria. You have New Dawn Safe Haven here that has 3 locations that is doing wonderful work with horses. And I don't want to miss anyone out. There's lots out there, Hoofs 2010. There's too many to mention. I apologise if I've missed anybody. The thing with rehoming that we always have to look at is the fact it's very much like adoption with children. You're going to have success stories. You're going to have many, many, many success stories, and you're going to hear about the failures. So where you have situations that haven't worked out, people like the Invasive Species Council are going to point these out. But that doesn't mean that is what's happening across the board. We need to have more support for our sanctuaries especially at the moment. I'm in Sydney and I'm paying $30 a bale for prime hay. So you can imagine what it's like for places that are bringing in many, many horses from the park. At first, when they come in, they obviously need intensive handling to allow them to be happy horses in their new environment. They'll need to come into yards, they'll need to be assessed, stallions potentially gelded. All of that costs a lot of money. And while most of these places are self-funded or crowd-funded, a little bit of support would be wonderful. In terms of sanctuaries, though, I think we could divide this into two parts. So I think that Andrew and the Narragansett people have put forward a proposal to have an area of the park set aside for horses, such as the lower areas like down in Kyandra that already have a significant part of the horse population residing there anyway. If we had something like 10,000 acres in that lower part of Kosciuszko, it would equal about 4,000 hectares, or about 0.5% of the entire park. We could do a significant amount to actually manage the horse population and make it a wonderful, exciting and vibrant tourist area. I don't know exactly what Andrew's proposal had, or the location of Andrew's proposal, but I think it would be something along those lines. I know that other people, such as Jenny Cole, have put forward proposals to the state government and it has been ignored. She has Umbango South, and she has done amazing work in a very short period of time. I really believe that the government needs to take lethal management off the table and start to engage with all of the stakeholders around the park that are dealing with the horses on a first-hand basis, instead of dealing with people who have absolutely no idea how to handle a horse, absolutely no idea what it takes to maintain a horse, and clearly no idea what it takes to humanely euthanize a horse. Get rid of these people. And I mean ISC, I mean Reclaim Cosy, I mean Penny Sharp. What we need to be doing is actually speaking to the people that are going to do the work and allowing them to do it.
Andrew, what do you think? What do you think of the idea? Should we get right behind sanctuaries, or the idea of sanctuaries, and how do we do it?
We've got to get rid of the Invasive Species Council, because national parks are quite willing to free some money up for those people, and they're only lobbyists that don't have qualifications. Some of that money should be given to the rehomes so they can make the sanctuaries and the rehomers and that more beneficial and less cost effective, I suppose, by giving them money so they can get their feeds and everything, and they can keep going forward to look after these animals, and it's not hitting their own personal pockets so hard. I think the government have got to get behind it, and basically I'd like the resignation of, not resignation of Penny Sharp, Chris Minns and the invasive species. I'd like to see them all sacked, to be quite honest. They're a waste of space and they're oxygen thieves. So that's my take on it.
Dunbar, the Brumby training to work with veterans, youth at risk, they're an amazing resource. A very dear friend of ours, Jane Healy, looks after, I think, soldiers and others with PTSD, and he uses horses to do that. They are an amazing resource, but not utilised a whole lot, are they?
No, that's an idea. I've sort of been I've actually had a bit of a yarn to a couple of people about sort of trying to kick a couple of rocks over there and see what we could come up with, and Andrew's one of them. I just think that you could be using these horses, the likes of, you could have, whether it was disaffected youth, possibly you could have all veterans with PTSD. You could there's no reason you have to have one and not the other. You know, maybe we could probably, I think there'd be plenty of room for, it's only the will to get those things going. And yeah, Andrew and I've sort of, and another person have just been sort of looking, like, as I said, looking into that. But yeah, I just think, you know, for example, let's just say it's disaffected youth. They could be helping with the whole trapping program, as far as, you know, to keep, you know, to deal with ongoing population numbers, assuming we're left with some horses, assuming we could just stop this cull now. Well, going on down the track, there's not going to be any huge urgency there, because they've shot those numbers to hell. The numbers, as everyone that's looked into it knows, the numbers that they're spruiking are just rubbish. You know, that it's just got no basis in fact whatsoever. But so there's time to get things like this off the ground before those numbers will start to become a problem again. And, you know, you could have kids helping with that whole trapping program, setting up panels, learning to, you know, just basics of stock handling, basics of driving vehicles, maybe, you know, when they're off road, just basic stuff to get kids channeled, I guess. And you know, with the right setup, with kids that are showing the right aptitude, you could have them start to have go from where they're just looking after, early days, they could be looking after horses, feeding and watering, and that's a big one just all of its own. It doesn't sound very sexy, but you know, if you've got an animal that needs you for its food and water and care, well, I think that touches something inside people that probably doesn't get touched, particularly when they've grown up on the wrong side of the tracks, or through whatever, whether it was drugs, whatever, got them off track. You know, and I don't know if you've heard of the youth backtrack program.
No.
Up north. That's been working. I think they've done a little bit with horses, and they work with dogs, and they get these kids out in the bush with good mentors to help them, you know, start to learn to track, teaching them bush skills, you know. But as these kids developed, if they show the kids that are showing the right sort of potential and attitude, you know, then you could move them up the chain where they're handling horses and getting to the top of the hill where they're learning to break in these horses and riding these horses, and then, you know, then you've the value added to these horses, where they're going to be a very viable concern to your value added to them. They're going to be an attractive proposition to potential buyers. You know, they're a horse ready to go on with, and you've done something that's brought a community together to do positive things, bringing a community together to work towards a positive goal, instead of where we're at now, where it's just dividing the community down the line and causing a lot of heartache within the community, and a hell of a lot of pain and suffering in the horse world. You
know? Andrew, tell me, first of all, how can government include everyone in the solution after they get rid of the ISC, which has to happen as soon as possible? The Narragansett Nation can get involved in what Dunbar's talking about, can't it? And actually, we are heading towards a much better solution.
Yeah, exactly. The government need to come to the table and sit with us, and we can work with the people of the mountains like Dunbar and your Shannon Byrne and Lisa Corwell and people like that. We can all work together to make it better, and we need to have our land given back to us to have a horse handling facility there, and where the people can come and they can handle the horses or just sit with the horses for whatever reason. Emergency service personnel, be it a firefighter, police officer or ambulance or something, they can, because they suffer with PTSD too, and they can come there and help at the horse handling facility as well. And there's a better way forward, and we're happy to lead that way if we can, providing we got support and everything from the people. I don't know how we're going to get them to the table. I suppose we just got to keep calling them out on their injustice and their killing Mother Earth for money. And if the horses made as much money for the government as Snowy 2's going to, and the snowfields and all those, you're travelling through the park and you got to pay at the gate and everything. If the horses made that much money like those things do for the government, I highly doubt we'd even be having this conversation. And I also believe in another 20 years, if we don't do nothing about it, it'll all be privatised and there won't be any national parks. And they just got to come to the table, and they've got to follow their own IATSIS map, which is a government map, and it shows the land belonging to each individual mob. And they can't have other mobs talking on behalf of Narrego or for the Narrego people. The Narrego are quite capable of speaking on our behalf, and the elders are as well, and they can't continue going down these lines. They're trying to not just eradicate the heritage, values and culture of the mountain people and the people of Australia, they're trying to eradicate, and they want to eradicate, the Narrego's heritage, values and cultures as well. And the way I'm seeing it going at the moment, that's exactly what they're doing, and they're not going to stop until they go for total eradication, and that's including the horse. And this is disrespect to mob, it's disrespectful to country, and it can't keep continuing on. And I'm not going to sit back anymore and be the nice guy and everything like that. I've got to take the emotion out of it, because I can get pretty emotional about this. But
it's heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And we have to be careful, because it doesn't look good, two grown men welling up and bawling their eyes out. And it's very easy to do that, because it's a very sad place we're at the moment, and we've got to stop that. Belinda, would you like to add to what Andrew just said? We need your microphone.
There you go, I'm unmuted, thank you. I do have experience with working with Indigenous communities, and I found it to be very disturbing that the government only seems to follow those ones that are loud and vocal. And I've said right from the start that it seems to be it's very well noted that they have been ignoring the voice of the Narrego in deference to someone like Richard Swain, who has visited the park and obviously is allowed to go and say something, but he is certainly not from that area. And I think it's just simply part of the agenda. They've picked someone who is willing to spruik on their behalf, and so they'll listen to that person. And I think that's disgusting. We've got a government here that wants reconciliation, it wants us to say sorry, it wants us to do all these things, yet it silences those that come from a particular area that have an opinion. So I'm absolutely on side there with Andrew in saying that the government needs to step up its game and speak to the people that actually know what they're all talking about in regards to that particular part of Australia. Just referencing back to what you were saying about horses in therapy, there's some notable examples in Australia. There's Johnny Echo from Warman community, who has worked for a long time with a horse program for local kids, teaching them how to break in horses, teaching them how to be stockmen, and it keeps families connected. These kids then actually, in a lot of cases, avoid petty crime, they avoid a lot of the problems that they had been experiencing in Warman community, and they have this wonderful connection with the horses. Same as, I'm not as familiar, but there's a gentleman called Sydney Moody from Balgo, and he's also been doing a similar sort of wellbeing program with wild horses in those areas. As I'm sure everyone's aware, there is a lot of brumbies right across Australia, and a lot of them come into Indigenous communities. So in New South Wales, of course, we didn't have aerial culling, but across the Northern Territory, it's an everyday occurrence, which I'd like to see stopped. And these people in these communities have come up against brick walls with the government as well in terms of continuing their programs. So I'm very concerned about what the underlying agenda is when you have clear interest from our wonderful Indigenous community that is being pushed aside in deference to killing. When you look at America, you see that the Americans have quite a number of programs where inmates are actually put into programs where they're breaking in horses, handling horses, working with horses. And what they were saying was, in one particular article, it teaches people emotional regulation. You can't work with a horse and have a screaming fit. You can't work with a horse and throw your arms around and have a tantrum. You have to be able to learn to regulate your emotions, which is a vital part of functioning in society as well. It teaches empathy and trust. People that may not have been able to trust other humans can find that area of trust in horses. Psychological well-being. Horses are renowned for actually giving you this sense of purpose, sense of worth, restored confidence. So all of these things are most definitely things the government should be looking at. And I notice in a couple of the comments coming up, people have said, why do the horses have to have a purpose at all? Well, ideally, we love to see them just roaming in their 4 attention zones within the park. I've been told that it's around about 32% of the park that they exist in. That would be wonderful if you could see the different bloodlines, see those isolated groups, because those 4 areas, I can assure you, are geographically isolated. I'm sorry. So it would be lovely to see that. But if that's not possible, if our only way forward is through rehoming and through programs such as rehabilitation and personal growth with horses, then that is a wonderful purpose for these brumbies.
Can I ask you, Dunbar, because, and I'm also interested in this personally, the stress that, and I've only been doing this for a little while. I look at people like yourselves and Mel and Dina, all those, and I wonder, where do you get help? Because the emotional and the stress of this has to be overwhelming.
It has weighed on me. I think I mentioned it yesterday in a discussion. It just sits pretty heavy with me that I just feel like it's frustrating for me, because I feel like through most of my life has given me insights and skills to have an opinion on what's going on. I've shot more horses than I can count in my life. I've fought more fires than I can count. I've managed country to enhance biodiversity. I've got regeneration plots and grasslands that have improved under my management. So I guess I feel a bit like I'm responsible, that I should be able to protect these horses from what's happening, and just not just the horses, but just to see what's been happening with Snowy Hydro, to see what's happening, to know what's down the track with these ski resorts. It's just it's really confronting as a local to see this stuff coming in. It really does feel a bit like, it feels a bit like Sydney or the urban world, or the people in power are just they're just turning what makes our national park special. They just want to turn it into an amusement theme park to service an urban population. It's like there's not enough there to the natural features that make it so unique seem to be not really what they focus on. They've got to sort of put in they've got to put inside amusement rides. They've got to put in roller coasters. They've got to change. It's like they're just trying to, they're wanting to put. We've got wind farms coming in to this area, not just in the park, but it just feels like our whole world is. I feel very responsible to try and do something for future generations. I'm not too worried about myself, but I just feel a big responsibility to the country and to these animals that are being terrorised up there to try and hold it. And so it does sit heavily with me at times. That it's just been very frustrating that I mentioned how I've had that background with, it gives you a lot of insights into the sort of terror that these horses are experiencing, and it gives me insights to know how impossible it is to shoot properly from a moving platform at animals that are running over very uneven terrain, and it makes me. I'm very aware of the damage that these helicopters that is happening to these horses, aside from the bullets being run through this rugged terrain, through bogs, through timber when they can hardly when they're leg weary and they can hardly run any further, and they're being pushed by a machine that can go 20 times faster than them, that has no boundaries on stamina. It's not having to go through the rugged terrain they're going. So the amount of mechanical advantage there to just terrorise these horses. I've had calls. I've been called by people to ask me to go and shoot a horse up there with a smashed shoulder in amongst the cull. Not this time round, but last cull back in 24 or whatever. There was another video I saw of a horse with a smashed back leg. I just saw a video. I haven't double checked, but I think I saw a video just this morning that I think was taken yesterday of a horse that was having a job to walk. The horses that are dying these terrible deaths from bullets, that's only part of the equation. All these horses that are getting left that didn't cop the bullets, or some of them have copped bullets and are still alive too, but even the ones that haven't, the damage that's being inflicted on these horses is just, it's shocking, and the day I had that call from someone asking, that was someone that barely knew me. I met them at the first protest I went to up in Canberra, and they had my number. Mm. And, you're a rock and a hard place. I remember I started to get gear together to go up there because, and I guess I should add, it also shows the level of distrust that the community, people in the public has for national park staff and police through this whole controlled shutdown and lies and deception, trickery and deceit. It just shows you that level of distrust, that this concerned person didn't feel they could ring national parks and trust that the right thing would happen. They called on someone they barely knew, and I started throwing gear together. And then I had sheep fresh off shears. They needed feeding. They needed attention, and it was, that was sort of like a pretty frustrating spot to be in for me. Like I had hundreds of my own stock that were at jeopardy if I went to go and do the right thing by one animal, And so in the end, I thought, you just got to weigh it up. There's hundreds of animals are going to be suffering. Their welfare is going to be suffering if I go to do this one job. So in the end, I stayed home but you don't forget that stuff. What you get, I go to, you see those animals, they're limping around till they perish, till they die. They're not going to come right. Mm. They're going to try and stick with their mob as best they can, or whether they're on their own. That's a horrible end, and then they'll probably get chewed up by pigs or dogs when they can't get up. That's their end. So that's not a very nice thing to turn your back. It wasn't a nice feeling to turn my back on that, and I could see this lame horse there I just spotted on the video this morning. Once again, who's going to deal with that? does anyone have any confidence in national parks going to go out and do the right thing by that horse? Like, I don't. If I go up there today and go and shoot that horse, if I get caught up there with a firearm,
Exactly.
We can see where that's headed.
Don't worry, we'll come and visit.
Sorry?
Don't worry, I'll come and visit you.
Bring me some scones.
Yeah.
A scotch and scones. Andrew, because we are going to wrap this up now because we've gone a bit over time and a late start, so I apologise. We're looking for solutions. We do have some ideas, but as we said at the onset of this discussion, it's very complex. It's hugely complex. What isn't complex, Andrew, is the level of cruelty and the level of ignorance from the ISC and the state government. And by the way, it's such a huge issue. Anything you see connected with money at the moment, renewables, the environment, all these things are all tied up. And you're talking billions, if not trillions of dollars. I said yesterday, anything with that amount of money, it does have a stench of corruption. That's another panel, but it's just such a complex thing. The way the National Parks and Wildlife Service is acting, truly, you should have a royal commission, because it's just going along as it would like to go along, and they can do what they like, and all these things. But it gets back to, doesn't it, Andrew, the lack of respect and the cruelty that is shown by organisations and the ambivalence of many Australians. It's just, it has to stop, doesn't it?
100%. It has to stop. And at the end of the day, Chris Minns has got full power to stop this. And if he can't control his staff and his ministers and that, then what in the hell is he doing there being the Premier of the state? Like, he signed off to have an amusement park and everything going on. He's got control of it. And his ignorance and his disrespect towards not only the Narragain people, but to the Australians and the mountain people as a whole. It's not just about his voting constituents in Cogra and all those places. Everyone in this country votes, and if he's not up to the job, well, don't run for politics. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the science is being stacked, it's being paid for, and it's all about money. And what we need to know is how much national parks are paying the Invasive Species Council, because the way it is at the moment, who's running this state? It seems like just Jack Goff is running it. It's definitely not Chris Minns, because he's only a little gopher, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to Penny Sharp and the Invasive Species Council. And as for Richard Swain, he's not Narragain. So he's got no right to be disrespecting mob and thinking that he's going to talk on behalf of mob and on behalf of country. Grow up. Mm. Your own mob even disagree with him. And I've got friends that are Wiradjuri. It's such disrespect to the Narragain people and disrespectful to his own people. And this has got to stop. It's about time Chris Minns and Penny Sharp and them all come to the board. And national parks they're only conservationists. They only want to lock the park up and watch it burn, and then they'll blame the innocent horse for the effect of the ecology and the ecosystems. Now, if Jack Goff thinks that it's pristine environment, well, that's only his opinion. That's all hearsay. He's got no actual fact what pristine looks like. And they've all got to get away from this, oh, it's alpine country, it's alpine country. It's not alpine country. It never has been, and it never will be. They need to decipher and be educated on what alpine and subalpine country is. It's not pristine, and it never will be. And if they think it's pristine, Well, show the proof. Show the actual circumstantial proof of evidence of what pristine looks like. Because I'm sorry, there's no such thing as bushfires anymore. The climate is changing, and it's changing because of the Greens, it's changing because of the government, and it's changing because national parks refuse to manage the fuel and the country properly. All they're doing is killing country and killing the horses and everything on it, and that is despicable. And I agree with you 100%. There needs to be a royal commission into this, and I think it's about time the Governor General of New South Wales starts stepping up and doing her job properly, because she can't be sitting around the table and drinking coffee or cups of tea and being blindsided by all this. She's got to see it, and she can stop it.
It has that stench of corruption. And unfortunately, innocent lives, those beautiful horses and people affected to those horses are being destroyed, all under the guise of saving the planet. It's absolute, as Jack Goff would say, I'll be a bit liberal with it, it's absolute horseshit. Belinda, to wrap this up, then we'll have Dunbar at the end. What's your thoughts?
I have so many. I don't think we have time.
No, we don't. We have to go home.
But certainly, this has been 3 years of my life that I don't think I'll ever get back since Penny Sharp made that announcement. I remember that day in October where she said she was going to commence aerial shooting, and all I could do was go and sit on my bed, close the door, turn off the lights and cry. And it commenced from there. It has been awful, some of the things that people have said to me. It has been difficult for me. I never went to a protest before this. It's been difficult for me to come out of my shell and load up the car and drive down to Parliament House and park in the Domain car park and drag my little cart up the hill and sit outside Parliament House and hold a banner saying stop shooting these horses. It's been hard for me to go and sit in Parliament and watch these. I mean, I can't think of a word. They're not people. Anybody that can sit in Parliament and play on their phone and laugh while stories of cruelty are read out is not human. You are a disconnected something else. I can't even say. But it's important for me to do that, to actually go and sit and watch these people that we're paying to run our lives laugh and giggle and play on their phones while we're pouring our hearts out about what's happening in that park. I will say that we do currently have a court case in progress. I'm sorry, I can't give you the dates off the top of my head, but I know that we lost the emergency injunction. However, there is still a court case in play, and we're hoping that something will come out of this. So if anybody does have original footage or information or anything, if they could please get into contact with, I'm sure they could send information to yourself at Country Telegraph, or to me, Belinda Williams, on Facebook, or directly to Sharalia Hitchcock, who is helping with that. We still have a chance to stop the November cull. I can't really tell you just in a few minutes everything that's going through my head on this topic, but I'm not the only one out there. I'm not the only one who feels this to the bottom of their soul every day and knows that it's wrong and just doesn't know exactly what to do to fight it.
It is such a complex issue, and Dunbar, I've gotten to know you pretty well, I think. I just want your hat. I mean, I was going to steal it, but then I saw those horses showing their teeth at me. That's my Dunbar's hat. I thought, oh, too big for me. But next time, you'll be one day looking for it, and you'll see in the distance a pair of legs running away with it on my head.
There's a pretty strong unwritten rule in the bush about touching people's hats. You want to tread carefully, Mike.
I am. I can run really fast. Just at the because it's I have to tell you, it's very emotional. This. Your final thoughts?
Look, I don't know how well it splices in here, but it's something that I haven't quite got around to mentioning in any of the other interviews I've done. So maybe it's not such a bad thing to finish up on. one of the most common things you'll hear is horses, they're hard hooves, they don't belong in Australia, they've got to go, full stop. I'd just like to point out, that sort of idea of conservation, it's very narrow, and it's pretty outdated. It's if you go back 40 odd thousand years ago, there was a lot of big megafauna getting around in Australia. There was a wombat weighing up to 3.5 tons, I believe. There was a giant kangaroo that weighed up around 260 kilograms, I think. I don't know if I'm getting the pronunciation right here, but it was called a prosoptodon, I think. And if you Google that or look up in Wikipedia or something, when they start describing it, they will say it had front feet on it like a horse. And those, I just done a little bit of checking on that. Those 3 main endangered species, and I'm sure I would be very surprised if that doesn't hold true with any of the other species up there in the national park. The corroboree frog, the broad-toothed rat, and the pygmy possum, like I said, not that that's really that relevant anyway to where the brumbies are, but I think the broad-toothed rat that definitely crosses over with the horses. But they cohabitated before those megafauna were wiped out, which that's still an unknown what caused that. Some people think it was the new Australians. Some think it was climate, but those species all cohabitated for many, many years with these big megafauna, and I think from what I've observed, I think horses are, and I've listened to scientists talk on this. One that comes to mind is Eric Lundgren, and I've been talking about trying to get him on your show with Jenny. There's some fascinating stuff there about the parallels of that horses are the perfect replacement for these megafauna in the environments where those megafauna used to be and have disappeared, So, yeah, I just think that's a little bit of trivia.
And it's you finally got that out, because I know you've been trying, but I don't know how many times we finally did it. So we eventually got there. Look, I want to thank you, Dunbar, Andrew, and Belinda, for being part of this panel. It is enormously complex. What isn't complex is that humans don't act this way. Australians don't act this way. And if we continue to do so, anybody who supports this, I'll say bluntly, bugger off, get out of this country. We have to have each other's back. And whether you like a horse or not, whether you like a dog or a cat, but if you like a horse or not, they have an important part of our history. They deserve the respect, and they deserve to be looked after. So that's about it. As you can hear, it's Andrew. You and I could have bawled our eyes out together. I'm not going to do that, but I think we have such an important issue here. Dunbar, Andrew, Belinda, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And that's it. That's about it, folks. Now, before we go, I want to play you one more time this spot. Now, I sat on it for weeks because I thought it was so straight to the point, and I think it's important that we get this out, we share, we make sure that the population knows what's at stake. I'll come back to you after this. This is that spot. Go to our Facebook page, YouTube channel, push it, because we have to, forever and ever, no more killing. It is just so barbaric, and it's barbaric beyond all comprehension. And this is not who I am. It's not who our guests are. It should not be who you are. We have to do what is right. So I'll play this spot. I'll come back, a few thank yous, and hopefully we can all make a difference. And if we all work together, we can. Okay, put me back. Yes. So that's our bit there. We need to get that out and start doing the right thing. Start making an impression, having an impact. I've just got to thank everybody this week. Thank Peter Cochrane for the use of his guzzling machine. Never gone through. We've got a little MX small car. It doesn't use much fuel. This thing, incredible. I put enough in for one day that would have got me by for about 3 months. But Peter Cochrane, you're brilliant. Auntie Joan, we'll talk to you down the track. For all the others, Mel. I mean, I'll forget names. There's Mel and Dean. Just too many. I have to say that you have made this a huge success, I think. We also have to thank Norman. Now, Norman, remember that film where they check in, don't check out? It was the guy who ran it was Norman. That thing, with the shower scene with the knife. Norman is nothing like that. He's a magnificent person. The property that Norman has is the Cooma Motor Lodge, and it has blistering internet. The bed was comfortable. He was just brilliant. So if you, and in 6 Sharp Street, and just around the corner from these little mobile restaurants. I got to tell you, we had Japanese last night. Magnificent. So Norman, we are indebted to you also. So thank you so much for your time and your consideration. And thank you to everybody. I think it's been a real educational experience, and I appreciate it beyond all belief. So thank you. So that's about it. I will leave you with one song, which we've played every day, and I think we need to take stock of who we are and where we're going, because at the moment we don't know who we are, and we're going to hell in a handbasket, as they would say. So thank you again. This has been a special, we'll do more of these by the way, but this has been a special program for the Country Telegraph. Until nothing on Monday, we're driving back, so we'll see you on Tuesday for breakfast. I just love getting up early. Not. Anyway, I'll see you for brekkie on Tuesday, and we'll do many, many more of these. Drive safely or ride safely. Be good to yourself and be good to your friends, and be good to Australia. Thank you very much.
Till my fall, I kept on running. Till my mirror, I heard her cry. Till the mountain, I belonged here. Till the wind, I said goodbye. Brumby hoof prints etched for generations in the snow. I've watched the foals become the mares, the stallions old and slow. Here in the snowy mountains, where my life began, across hills, ridges and open plains, my fellow Brumbies ran. I've led them through winter storms, drought and summer rain, but I can't outrun what follows now. Shield my family from this pain. My ancestors crossed the oceans, but I was born upon this land. These mountains are my birthplace. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home is where you're raised, then this is where we should be. Tell my foal I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye. Stay close beside me, little one. The thunder isn't rain. The sky itself is hunting us, and I cannot stop the pain. I gather those I love and turn to face the sound. Though every instinct tells me run, there's nowhere left for us now. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home is where you're raised, then this is where we should be. I don't know the reason. I hear the echo of final sound, deadly thunder overhead as I fall upon the ground. Thunder again and again. My heart grows quiet as bullets rain. I thought I had more seasons, more rivers left to roam, more sunrises with my Kosciuszko clan before the mountains called me home. Tell them I was born here, my grandfathers fought their wars. Remind them that this was our home. The snowy mountains were ours. Tell my foal I knew her fear. Tell my mare I heard her call. Tell my foal I tried to save them. Tell the wind how brumbies fall. Tell my foal I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye.